The African sun blazes mercilessly overhead as dust swirls through the acacia trees. In the distance, four massive lion silhouettes move with predatory precision, their golden eyes fixed on a scene of absolute chaos unfolding before them. A magnificent Kangal dog, its powerful jaws locked in mortal combat with a 20-foot rock python, bites desperately as the massive serpent coils tighter around a young zebra's fragile body. Blood spatters the red earth. The zebra's labored breathing grows weaker. Time is running out. The lions circle closer, waiting, watching, ready to claim whatever survives this brutal encounter. Suddenly, the thunderous roar of a Land Rover engine cuts through the tension like a blade. Ranger Marcus Thompson grips the steering wheel, his knuckles white, as he makes the decision that will either save 3 lives or end his 20-year career in wildlife conservation. The vehicle rockets forward, kicking up clouds of dust as it barrels straight toward the lions. This is the moment everything changes. This is when the rules of nature get rewritten by the courage of a dog, the desperation of a dying zebra, and the split-second decision of a man who chose compassion over protocol. But to understand how we reached this heart-stopping climax, how a Turkish livestock guardian became the unlikely hero in an African wildlife reserve, and why 4 apex predators would risk everything for an easy meal, we need to go back to where it all began. Before we dive into this incredible story, I need you to do something for me. Drop your country in the comments below. I want to see how far this story reaches across the globe. And hit that subscribe button for Wind Echo Untold, because what you're about to witness will challenge everything you think you know about loyalty, courage, and the unbreakable bonds that exist between species. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. 6 months earlier, the Serengeti Research Reserve in Tanzania welcomed an unusual addition to its conservation team. Koda, a 2-year-old Kangal shepherd dog, arrived not as a pet or a mascot, but as a revolutionary experiment in wildlife protection. Dr. Sarah Kimani, the reserve's head veterinarian, had spent years watching helplessly as livestock from neighboring communities fell victim to predator attacks. The resulting human-wildlife conflicts were tearing apart the delicate ecosystem she'd devoted her life to protecting. Traditional methods weren't working. Electric fences failed. Compensation programs bred resentment. Something had to change. That's when she discovered the ancient Turkish tradition of Kangal dogs, legendary guardians bred for over 6 centuries to protect livestock from wolves, bears, and leopards in the harsh Anatolian mountains. These weren't ordinary dogs. Kangals could run 35 miles per hour, possessed bite forces exceeding 700 pounds per square inch, and were known for their supernatural ability to assess threats and make split-second tactical decisions. Koda represented hope. At 140 pounds of pure muscle and instinct, he embodied thousands of years of genetic evolution designed for one purpose: protection. His thick double coat could withstand temperature extremes. His amber eyes could detect movement from over a mile away. His powerful legs could carry him across rough terrain for hours without fatigue. But Koda was more than just a biological weapon. He possessed something that couldn't be measured or quantified, an unwavering loyalty that transcended species boundaries. In Turkey, his ancestors had died defending sheep from mountain wolves. Here in Tanzania, he would face challenges no Kangal had ever encountered. The reserve's research team, led by Dr. Kimani and wildlife biologist Dr. James Ochieng, carefully integrated Koda into their ecosystem monitoring program. He lived among the zebra herds, learning their behaviors, understanding their social structures, becoming not just their guardian, but part of their extended family. Marcus Thompson, a veteran ranger with 20 years of African wildlife experience, initially viewed Koda with skepticism. "Dogs don't belong in the wild," he told Dr. Kimani during their first meeting. "This isn't a farm in Turkey. This is the Serengeti. Everything here wants to kill everything else." But Marcus was about to discover that sometimes the most effective solutions come from the most unexpected sources. The morning of September 15th began like any other in the reserve. The zebra herd, 37 individuals ranging from foals to elderly matriarchs, moved slowly through the acacia woodland, searching for the sweet grass that grew in the shade of the thorny trees. Among them walked Zara, a 2-year-old filly whose distinctive white stripe pattern made her easily recognizable to the research team. But Zara carried a secret burden, a parasitic infection that had been weakening her for weeks, while the other zebras grazed energetically. Zara moved with the sluggish determination of an animal fighting an invisible battle. Koda sensed her weakness immediately. His nostrils flared as he detected the subtle chemical changes in her scent, the telltale markers of illness that predators would eventually notice too. He positioned himself closer to Zara, his protective instincts heightened by her vulnerability. 3 miles away, coiled beneath a massive baobab tree, lay one of Africa's most dangerous predators, the rock python, a female measuring over 20 feet in length and weighing nearly 200 pounds, had been hunting unsuccessfully for 2 weeks. Her last meal, a young impala, had sustained her for a month, but now hunger gnawed at her massive frame. Rock pythons are ambush predators capable of remaining motionless for days while waiting for the perfect opportunity. This particular serpent had developed a reputation among local rangers as the Ghost, a creature so skilled at concealment that she seemed to materialize from thin air when claiming her victims. Her heat-sensing organs detected warm-blooded prey from remarkable distances. Her muscles could exert crushing pressure exceeding 90 pounds per square inch, enough to stop a zebra's heart in minutes. And her patience was legendary, born from millions of years of evolution that had transformed her species into perfect killing machines. As the zebra herd approached the baobab tree, the Ghost's ancient hunting algorithms activated. She could sense Zara's weakness, smell the sickness that made her an ideal target. Young, sick, separated just enough from the herd to make an attack feasible. The python's body tensed like a loaded spring, her yellow eyes locked onto Zara's approaching form. In the wild, there are no second chances, no mercy, no appeals to compassion. There is only the eternal struggle between predator and prey, death and survival, hunger and fear. Koda felt it too, that electric tension that precedes violence. His hackles rose, his muscles coiled, his senses sharpened to supernatural acuity. Somewhere in his genetic memory, thousands of years of guardian instincts began to scream warnings. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test every fiber of courage, loyalty, and determination that evolution had woven into 2 magnificent creatures. The Ghost was about to strike. Zara was about to die, and Koda was about to discover what it truly meant to be a guardian. At 10:47 a.m., the Ghost made her move. 20 feet of muscle and malevolent intelligence exploded from the undergrowth with the force of a lightning strike. Her massive coils wrapped around Zara's torso before the young zebra could even process the threat. The python's prehistoric hunting strategy was flawless. Strike fast, constrict immediately, suffocate the prey before it could struggle or cry out for help. Zara's eyes went wide with terror as she felt the crushing pressure around her ribs. Her legs buckled. Her breath came in shallow, desperate gasps. The other zebras scattered in panic, their hooves thundering against the hard-packed earth as they fled from the sudden eruption of violence. But Koda didn't run. The Kangal's response was instantaneous and devastating. 140 pounds of Turkish fury launched through the air, his jaws targeting the python's head with surgical precision. His teeth sank deep into the serpent's thick hide, drawing blood and eliciting a hiss of rage and surprise from the ancient predator. The Ghost had never encountered resistance like this. In her 15 years of hunting, no prey animal had ever fought back with such intelligence and ferocity. This wasn't the panicked thrashing of a desperate victim. This was a calculated tactical assault from a creature that understood exactly what it was doing. Koda's bite force 743 pounds per square inch, according to Dr. Kimani's measurements, created crushing pressure that the python couldn't ignore. But the ghost was no ordinary adversary. Her muscular body writhed and twisted, using her superior size and weight to try to dislodge the dog while maintaining her death grip on Zara. For 7 agonizing minutes, the 3 creatures locked in mortal combat. Koda's jaws remained clamped on the python's neck, his powerful legs braced against the ground as he pulled with every ounce of strength in his body. The ghost responded by tightening her coils around both Zara and attempting to loop her tail around Koda's hindquarters. Zara's condition deteriorated rapidly. The combination of her illness and the python's constriction created a medical emergency that was measured in seconds, not minutes. Her tongue protruded from her mouth, her eyes began to glaze over, and her struggles grew weaker with each passing moment. Dr. Kimani, monitoring the herd through binoculars from her research station 2 miles away, watched the drama unfold with growing horror. "Marcus," she radioed to the ranger, "we have a situation at grid reference 7 Alpha. Koda is engaged with a large python. The zebra filly is in immediate danger." Marcus Thompson grabbed his rifle and jumped into his Land Rover, but he was 15 minutes away at best. In wildlife emergencies, 15 minutes might as well be 15 hours. By the time he arrived, the battle would be over, one way or another. At exactly 10:54 a.m., everything changed. 4 male lions emerged from the tall grass like golden ghosts, their massive frames moving with the fluid grace that marked them as apex predators. These weren't ordinary lions. They were members of the notorious Mwanza Pride, known throughout the Serengeti for their size, aggression, and tactical intelligence. The Pride's alpha male, a magnificent specimen weighing over 400 pounds, assessed the situation with the calculating mind of a military strategist. Here was an opportunity that required no hunting, no energy expenditure, no risk of injury. 3 exhausted combatants locked in a struggle that would soon leave survivors too weak to resist. The lions formed a perfect circle around the battlefield, each male positioned to cut off escape routes. Their strategy was simple and brutally effective. Wait for the python, dog, and zebra to exhaust themselves, then claim whatever remained. Koda felt the lion's presence immediately. His peripheral vision caught the movement of golden shapes positioning themselves in the shadows. His tactical situation had just become exponentially more complex. Now he wasn't just fighting to save Zara from the python. He was fighting to save both of them from 4 of Africa's most dangerous predators. The Kangal faced a decision that would define the next crucial minutes. Continue his assault on the python and risk being flanked by the lions, or release his grip and attempt to drive off the larger predators while the ghost completed her kill. His genetic programming provided no clear answer. Kangals were bred to face single threats: a wolf, a bear, a leopard. They weren't designed to simultaneously battle multiple apex predators while protecting compromised livestock. But Koda possessed something that transcended breeding and genetics, an intelligence that could adapt, improvise, and overcome. In that moment of crisis, he made a decision that would have impressed military tacticians throughout history. He intensified his attack on the python while simultaneously positioning his body to shield Zara from the lions. It was a strategy that required perfect timing, maximum aggression, and an acceptance that he might not survive the next few minutes. The ghost, feeling the increased pressure from Koda's jaws, began to loosen her grip on Zara. The serpent's survival instincts were calculating a new equation. Was this zebra worth dying for? The dog's bite was causing serious damage, and the presence of the lions meant that even if she succeeded in killing her prey, she might not live to consume it. Marcus Thompson's Land Rover crested the hill at 11:02 a.m., giving him his first clear view of the crisis unfolding below. What he saw stopped his heart. Koda stood like a fortress over Zara's collapsed form, his jaws still locked on the python's neck, while 4 massive lions slowly tightened their circle. The zebra was clearly alive, but barely conscious. The python was weakening, but still dangerous. And the lions were positioning themselves for a coordinated attack that would end with multiple casualties. Marcus faced the most difficult decision of his career. Reserve policy was crystal clear: no human intervention in natural predator-prey relationships. The ecosystem maintained its balance through these brutal encounters. Interfering could disrupt migration patterns, alter territorial boundaries, and create dangerous dependencies that might doom entire species populations. But as he watched Koda's heroic stand, as he saw the dog's unwavering determination to protect a creature from a completely different species, Marcus felt something deeper than professional obligation stirring in his chest. This wasn't just nature taking its course. This was a test of values, a moment where the choice between following rules and following conscience would define not just the outcome of this battle, but the character of the man making the decision. Dr. Kimani's voice crackled over the radio. "Marcus, you need to make a choice. Koda can't hold them off much longer. The zebra is going into shock. If we're going to act, it has to be now." Marcus studied the tactical situation with the analytical mind that had kept him alive through 2 decades of dangerous wildlife encounters. The lions were focused entirely on the python-dog-zebra engagement. Their attention was concentrated, their positioning predictable, their escape routes clearly defined. If he could create enough chaos, enough confusion, enough disruption to their carefully planned ambush, he might be able to shift the entire dynamic of the encounter. But it would require perfect timing, maximum aggression, and a willingness to bet everything on a single, desperate gamble. He shifted the Land Rover into gear, his hands steady despite the adrenaline flooding his system. The vehicle's engine rumbled like distant thunder as he positioned himself for what military strategists would call a shock and awe assault. The next 60 seconds would determine whether 4 creatures lived or died, whether courage triumphed over circumstance, and whether a Turkish guardian dog's loyalty could rewrite the laws of the African wilderness. Marcus pressed the accelerator to the floor. The Land Rover exploded forward like a mechanized rhinoceros, its diesel engine roaring with the fury of 8 cylinders pushed to maximum capacity. Marcus gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles as the vehicle bounced and lurched across the uneven terrain. Dust and debris flying in its wake like the contrail of a fighter jet. The lions detected the threat immediately. Their heads snapped toward the approaching vehicle, their predatory calculations suddenly disrupted by this unprecedented variable. In their collective hunting experience, no human had ever challenged them so directly, so aggressively, so completely without fear. The alpha male's reaction was instantaneous, a territorial roar that shook the acacia trees and sent smaller animals fleeing for miles in every direction. But even as he postured and threatened, his tactical instincts were processing a harsh reality. 400 pounds of muscle and bone, no matter how fierce, could not stop 3,000 pounds of steel and determination traveling at 40 miles per hour. Koda felt the vibrations through the ground before he heard the engine. His tactical awareness expanded to include this new element. And somehow, through instincts honed by centuries of working alongside human shepherds, he understood that help was coming. The python sensed it too. The ghost's primitive nervous system detected the approaching mechanical predator and began making rapid survival calculations. This zebra was no longer worth dying for. This battle was no longer winnable. At the moment of maximum tension, when the Land Rover was 30 yards away and closing fast, the Mwanza Pride made their decision. The alpha male's roar became a signal for strategic withdrawal, and 4 golden forms melted back into the tall grass with the fluid grace that had made them legends of the Serengeti. But they didn't retreat far. These were lions who had never learned to fear humans, predators who viewed the wildlife reserve as their ancestral territory. They positioned themselves in the surrounding vegetation, watching, waiting, ready to resume their hunt the moment the human threat departed. Marcus slammed on the brakes 20 feet from the python-dog-zebra engagement, creating a cloud of dust and gravel that provided momentary concealment for all the combatants. He left the engine running, its mechanical growl serving as a constant reminder to the lions that the balance of power had shifted. The ghost made her decision in the span of 3 heartbeats. The combination of Koda's relentless assault, the lion's territorial pressure, and now the human intervention created a threat matrix that exceeded her survival parameters. With a final violent twist, she released her grip on Zara and began her retreat toward the baobab tree. But Koda wasn't finished. The Kangal's grip on the python's neck remained locked as the ghost attempted to withdraw. 20 feet of serpentine muscle pulled against 140 pounds of Turkish determination, creating a tug-of-war that sent both animals rolling across the dusty ground. Marcus grabbed his rifle and jumped from the Land Rover, but he immediately realized that any shot he took would risk hitting Koda or Zara. The 3 animals were too closely entangled, their positions shifting too rapidly, the stakes too high for any margin of error. For 30 seconds that felt like 30 minutes, Koda and the ghost engaged in their final struggle. The python's massive coils writhed and twisted, seeking purchase, seeking leverage, seeking any advantage that might allow her to either escape or drag the dog down with her. But Koda had found something beyond physical strength, beyond genetic programming, beyond even his legendary determination. He had found the pure essence of loyalty, that mystical force that transforms ordinary creatures into heroes, that bridges the gap between species, that creates bonds stronger than self-preservation. His jaws clamped down with renewed force, drawing a hiss of pain and frustration from the ancient predator. The ghost's movements became more desperate, more frantic, as she realized that this dog would literally die before releasing his grip. And then, in a moment that defied millions of years of predatory evolution, the ghost made the unprecedented decision to abandon her prey entirely. With a final violent wrench, she pulled free from Koda's jaws, leaving behind strips of her own hide as she slithered rapidly toward the safety of the baobab tree. Silence fell over the battlefield like a shroud. Koda stood swaying on his feet, blood dripping from his muzzle, his eyes still scanning for threats. Zara lay motionless in the dust, her breathing shallow but steady, alive by the narrowest of margins. Marcus approached carefully, his rifle ready, his eyes constantly sweeping the surrounding vegetation where he knew the lions waited. The tactical situation remained precarious. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. Dr. Kimani's voice crackled over the radio. "Marcus, what's the situation? I'm reading elevated stress signals from Zara's tracking collar. Is she alive?" Marcus knelt beside the young zebra, his experienced hands checking for injuries, while Koda maintained his protective stance. "She's alive," he reported. "Traumatized, possibly injured, but alive. Koda." "Koda is a hero." As if hearing his name, the Kangal turned his amber eyes toward the ranger. In that moment of eye contact, Marcus saw something that would stay with him for the rest of his life. The pure, uncomplicated nobility of a creature who had risked everything to protect someone who couldn't protect themselves. The lions remained hidden in the grass, their golden eyes watching, waiting, calculating. The python had retreated, but not fled entirely. The immediate crisis was over, but the larger questions remained. How would they get Zara to safety? Could Koda continue to protect her in his injured condition? And what would happen when the sun set and the real predators of the African night began to hunt? The climax was complete, but the story was far from over. Dr. Kimani's veterinary team arrived 37 minutes after Marcus's radio call. Their specialized wildlife rescue vehicle equipped with everything needed for emergency field treatment. The drive from the research station had seemed endless as they navigated rough terrain while monitoring Zara's vital signs through her tracking collar. What they found upon arrival was a scene that would be etched in their memories forever. Koda standing guard over Zara like a four-legged statue, his eyes constantly scanning the perimeter, his body positioned to shield the zebra from any direction of attack. Blood matted his coat where the python's teeth had found purchase, but his stance remained strong, defiant, unbroken. Dr. Kimani's first priority was assessing Zara's condition. The young zebra was in severe shock. Her temperature had dropped dangerously low, her breathing remained labored, and the psychological trauma of the attack had triggered a catatonic state that often proved fatal in wild animals. "We need to get her to the medical facility immediately," Dr. Kimani announced as her team carefully positioned a specialized stretcher beside the motionless zebra. "She's got maybe 2 hours before organ failure becomes irreversible." But as the veterinary team approached Zara, Koda's protective instincts flared to life. The dog positioned himself between the humans and his charge, his growl low and unmistakable. After the trauma of the python attack and the lion threat, his trust extended to no one except Marcus, who had proven himself in combat. Marcus understood immediately. "He doesn't know you," he explained to Dr. Kimani. "Right now, everyone except me is a potential threat." The ranger approached Koda slowly, his movements deliberate and non-threatening. "Easy, boy," he murmured, his voice carrying the calm authority that had worked with dangerous animals for 20 years. "These are friends. They're here to help Zara." The moment of trust transfer was profound in its simplicity. Marcus placed his hand on Koda's head, looking directly into the dog's amber eyes, and said, "It's okay. Let them help." Koda's body language shifted almost imperceptibly. His hackles lowered, his stance relaxed slightly, his growl faded to silence. But he didn't move away from Zara. He simply adjusted his position to allow the veterinary team access while maintaining his protective oversight. Dr. James Ochieng, the wildlife biologist, documented the entire interaction with fascination. "In 30 years of animal behavior research," he whispered to his assistant, "I've never seen trust transmitted so clearly between species. The dog is literally transferring guardianship to Marcus while maintaining protective responsibility. Loading Zara onto the stretcher required careful coordination between the veterinary team and Koda's protective instincts. The dog followed every movement with laser focus, occasionally repositioning himself to maintain optimal defensive angles, but never interfering with the medical procedures. Dr. Kimani administered emergency medications, anti-shock treatments, pain management, antibiotics to prevent infection from the python's saliva and bacterial load. Zara's vital signs began to stabilize as the drugs took effect, but her psychological state remained fragile. "She's not just physically traumatized," Dr. Kimani explained to Marcus as they loaded the zebra into the rescue vehicle. "Prey animals who survive predator attacks often develop a condition similar to PTSD. She may never fully integrate back into the herd." Koda attempted to jump into the vehicle with Zara, but his own injuries finally began to manifest. The adrenaline that had sustained him through the battle was wearing off, revealing the true extent of the damage the python's teeth had inflicted. His left shoulder showed deep puncture wounds. His hindquarters bore scrapes and bruises from the serpent's powerful tail, and exhaustion was finally catching up to his heroic frame. As the rescue team prepared to depart, the Mwanza pride began to close in once again. The lions had been watching from the tall grass, waiting for the humans to lower their guard, seeking any opportunity to claim their prize. Marcus spotted the movement first, golden shapes materializing from the vegetation like deadly mirages. "We've got company," he announced, raising his rifle while simultaneously starting the Land Rover's engine. Dr. Kimani's rescue vehicle was equipped with deterrent systems, air horns, strobe lights, and noisemakers designed to discourage wildlife interaction. But these lions had proven themselves unusually bold, unusually determined, and unusually intelligent. The alpha male emerged first, his massive frame silhouetted against the acacia trees, his territorial roar echoing across the savanna. The other three males flanked him in perfect formation, their collective message unmistakable. The humans were trespassing in their domain. Koda's response was immediate, despite his injuries. The dog positioned himself between the approaching lions and the rescue vehicle, his hackles raised, his stance defiant. Even wounded, even exhausted, even facing impossible odds, his loyalty remained absolute. What followed was a tense 30-second standoff that perfectly encapsulated the eternal struggle between human intervention and natural law. The lions advanced slowly, testing boundaries, probing for weakness. The humans maintained their positions but avoided direct confrontation. And Koda stood at the intersection, a bridge between worlds, a guardian whose courage transcended species boundaries. Marcus made the decision that ended the standoff. He fired 2 warning shots into the air, not at the lions, but above them. The rifle's sharp crack serving as an acoustic reminder of humanity's technological advantage. The lions paused, but didn't retreat. These were predators who had learned to associate humans with easy scavenging opportunities, not danger. The alpha male took another step forward, his eyes locked on Marcus with calculation rather than fear. But then Koda did something extraordinary. The injured dog stepped forward, placing himself directly between the lions and humans, and issued a challenge that was heard for miles across the savannah. A howl that combined Turkish mountain courage with African wilderness determination. A sound that spoke of loyalty, sacrifice, and unbreakable bonds. The lions stopped. In that howl, they heard something they recognized. The voice of an apex predator who refused to yield, who would fight to the death, who possessed something they couldn't quantify or understand, but instinctively respected. After a long moment, the alpha male turned and led his pride back into the tall grass. Not in defeat, but in recognition. The battle was over. The humans and their guardian had earned safe passage. The convoy of vehicles moved slowly across the savannah, Marcus's Land Rover leading, while Dr. Kimani's rescue vehicle followed with its precious cargo. Koda rode in the back of Marcus's truck, his eyes constantly scanning for threats, his protective instincts undiminished despite his injuries. During the 40-minute journey to the research station, Dr. Kimani monitored Zara's condition while reflecting on what she had witnessed. The entire encounter challenged fundamental assumptions about animal behavior, interspecies relationships, and the role of domesticated animals in wild ecosystems. "Marcus," she radioed to the ranger, "I need to ask you something. When you made the decision to intervene, what went through your mind? You violated every protocol we have about non-interference." Marcus's response came after a long pause. "I watched that dog risk everything to save an animal he barely knew, from a species completely different from his own. He didn't calculate odds or consider consequences. He just saw someone in trouble and decided to help. If a dog could show that kind of courage, how could I do any less?" The research station's medical facility was prepared for their arrival. Dr. Kimani's team immediately transferred Zara to the intensive care unit, where specialized equipment could monitor her recovery. Koda insisted on remaining close to the zebra, positioning himself where he could see her but not interfere with medical procedures. Over the following hours, as Zara began to recover from her physical trauma, an extraordinary relationship developed between the zebra and her guardian. Every time medical staff approached, Koda would stand and assess their intentions. When Zara showed signs of distress, the dog would move closer, his presence somehow calming her anxiety. Dr. Ochieng documented the interaction with scientific fascination. "We're witnessing the formation of an interspecies bond that has no precedent in wildlife literature. The zebra has essentially imprinted on Koda as her protector, while the dog has assumed permanent guardianship responsibilities that extend beyond his original training." Word of the rescue spread quickly through the international conservation community. Videos captured by the research team's remote cameras showed the python attack, Koda's heroic response, the lion's strategic positioning, and Marcus's intervention. The footage went viral on social media platforms, generating worldwide attention and support for the reserve's innovative Guardian Dog program. Local Maasai communities, who had initially viewed the Turkish dogs with suspicion, embraced Koda as a hero. Traditional warriors who had faced lions armed only with spears understood the courage required to stand against such predators. They began calling him Simba Mwema, the Good Lion, recognizing him as an honorary member of their warrior culture. Children from neighboring villages asked their parents to take them to the research station, hoping to catch a glimpse of the legendary dog who had fought a giant snake and faced down 4 lions to save a zebra. Their drawings and stories transformed Koda into a figure of myth and legend, a symbol of courage that transcended cultural boundaries. The Turkish government, learning of their national breed's heroic performance, offered to donate additional Kangal dogs to support the conservation program. Breeding associations worldwide began studying the genetic lines that had produced such exceptional courage and intelligence. But the most profound transformation was in the individuals directly affected by the encounter. Zara's recovery progressed beyond all medical expectations, her resilience strengthened by the security of knowing her protector remained near. The trauma that might have crippled her psychologically was instead transformed into a deep trust that extended to the entire research team. Marcus found himself re-evaluating 20 years of wildlife management philosophy. The strict non-interference policies that had guided his career suddenly seemed less absolute, less wise when measured against the reality of what he had witnessed. Courage, he realized, was not the exclusive domain of any single species. Dr. Kamani's research took on new dimensions as she studied the implications of interspecies guardianship in wild ecosystems. The success of the Kangal program suggested possibilities for conservation strategies that no one had previously imagined. And Koda simply continued being what he had always been, a guardian whose loyalty knew no boundaries, whose courage recognized no limits, whose heart understood only the imperative to protect those who could not protect themselves. The immediate crisis was over, but its impact would resonate through the conservation world for years to come. 3 months after the incident, Zara had fully integrated back into her herd, but with a difference. She bore no visible scars from her encounter with the ghost, but she carried something far more valuable, an unshakable confidence born from knowing that in her darkest moment, when death seemed certain, a guardian angel had appeared in the form of a Turkish shepherd dog. Koda's legend grew with each passing day. Scientists from universities around the world came to study the dog who had rewritten the rules of interspecies relationships. Conservationists sought to understand how a single animal could bridge the gap between human intervention and natural ecosystem balance. Children's books were written about his courage. Documentary crews captured his daily routine, showing how he had seamlessly integrated into the zebra herd's social structure while maintaining his protective vigilance. But for Koda, none of the fame mattered. Each morning, he would check on every member of his extended family, the 37 zebras who had accepted him as their guardian. He would patrol the territory boundaries, his amber eyes constantly scanning for threats, his powerful body ready to intercede at a moment's notice. At night, he would position himself where he could monitor the herd's sleeping area, his ears attuned to every sound that might signal danger. The ghost was never seen again in the reserve. Some rangers reported python tracks leading toward the river delta, suggesting she had moved to new hunting grounds. Others believed the encounter with Koda had taught her to avoid areas where zebra herds grazed. The truth remained a mystery, but her absence was a testament to the psychological impact of facing a guardian who refused to yield. Marcus Thompson became a reluctant celebrity in conservation circles. His decision to break protocol and intervene in the natural order sparked debates that reached the highest levels of wildlife management. Some criticized his actions as dangerous precedent-setting that could disrupt ecosystem balance. Others hailed him as a hero who understood that conservation sometimes requires the courage to make difficult choices. The controversy led to policy changes. Throughout the international wildlife management community, new protocols were developed that allowed for intervention in specific circumstances when introduced species, like coda, were threatened by native predators, when research animals vital to conservation programs faced immediate danger, or when human action could prevent cascading ecological disasters. Marcus himself remained philosophical about the attention. "I just did what felt right," he told reporters. When you see courage like that, when you witness loyalty that pure, you have to ask yourself what kind of person you want to be. Do you hide behind rules and procedures, or do you stand up for what matters? Dr. Kimani's Guardian Dog program expanded rapidly, with Kangal shepherds being introduced to wildlife reserves across East Africa. Each dog was carefully selected, trained and integrated into specific ecosystems where human-wildlife conflict threatened both conservation efforts and local communities. The success rate was remarkable. Over 90% of participating reserves reported significant decreases in livestock predation, while wildlife populations actually increased due to reduced retaliatory killings by farmers. The Turkish dogs had become ambassadors of coexistence, proving that ancient wisdom and modern conservation could work hand in hand. But the story of Coda, Zara, and Marcus resonated far beyond the conservation community because it spoke to something fundamental in the human spirit, our deep need to believe that loyalty matters, that courage can triumph over overwhelming odds, that sometimes the most unlikely heroes emerge from the most desperate circumstances. In a world often dominated by cynicism and despair, their story provided something increasingly rare, proof that nobility exists, that sacrifice means something, that love can indeed conquer fear. It didn't matter whether you lived in a Manhattan apartment or a rural African village. The image of a Turkish dog standing defiant against 4 lions to protect a zebra spoke to universal values that transcended culture, geography, and species. Social media platforms exploded with tributes to the unlikely trio. Artists created murals depicting Coda's heroic stand. Musicians composed songs celebrating interspecies loyalty. Writers crafted stories inspired by the courage they had witnessed. The narrative became a modern parable about the power of doing what's right, regardless of the consequences. Yet perhaps the most profound impact was on the individuals who witnessed the events firsthand. Dr. Kimani found herself questioning not just wildlife management strategies, but fundamental assumptions about the nature of consciousness, emotion, and moral reasoning in non-human animals. Coda made a choice, she reflected in her research notes. He calculated risks, weighed outcomes, and decided that Zara's life was worth more than his own safety. That's not instinct, that's moral reasoning at a level we're only beginning to understand. Marcus discovered that his breach of protocol had opened doors to conversations about the role of compassion in conservation. Rangers from around the world shared their own stories of moments when humanity intersected with wildlife in unexpected ways, creating a new understanding of what it meant to be a guardian of the natural world. Even the Maasai warriors who had initially questioned the wisdom of bringing Turkish dogs to African soil found themselves changed by what they had witnessed. Their traditional stories began incorporating tales of Simba Mwema, the good lion who proved that courage comes in many forms, that heroism recognizes no boundaries. Today, 6 months after the incident, Coda continues his daily patrol of the reserve. His coat bears faint scars from the python's teeth, but his spirit remains undiminished. He has become not just a guardian, but a symbol, proof that loyalty, courage, and love can create bonds stronger than genetics, stronger than species barriers, stronger than the harsh mathematics of survival. Zara grazes peacefully among her herd, but she carries with her the confidence that comes from knowing she is protected. When young foals venture too far from the group, she gently guides them back to safety, as if passing on the lesson she learned that terrible morning when death came calling, and found itself facing a guardian angel with amber eyes and an unbreakable heart, the ghost remains somewhere in the vast African wilderness, perhaps telling her offspring about the day she met a creature whose loyalty burned brighter than hunger, whose courage proved stronger than millions of years of predatory evolution. Whether she learned from that encounter, whether it changed her understanding of the world, we'll never know. But her absence from the reserve speaks volumes about the psychological impact of facing true determination. In the end, this story isn't really about a dog, a zebra, and a python. It's about the choices we make when everything is on the line. It's about the courage to stand up when standing up seems impossible. It's about the loyalty that transforms ordinary creatures into legends. Koda didn't save Zara because he was bred to do so. He saved her because, in that moment of ultimate crisis, he chose love over fear, loyalty over self-preservation, hope over despair. Marcus didn't break protocol because it was professionally advantageous. He did it because he recognized courage when he saw it and refused to let it stand alone. These are the moments that define us, not as species, not as professionals, not as members of particular cultures or communities, but as conscious beings capable of transcending our limitations through the sheer force of will and the power of caring about something more than ourselves. The African sun still blazes mercilessly overhead. Lions still hunt. Pythons still strike from ambush. The eternal struggle between predator and prey continues as it has for millions of years. But now, walking among the zebra herds, there is a guardian whose very presence changes the equation. A reminder that evolution is not just about survival of the fittest, but about the survival of the most loyal, the most courageous, the most willing to sacrifice for others. Koda's legacy will outlive his physical form. Long after his paws no longer patrol the African soil, his story will inspire others to stand guard, to protect the vulnerable, to choose love over fear when the moment of truth arrives. And that brings us to you, watching this story unfold on your screen, safe in your own corner of the world. What guardian spirit lives within you? When your moment comes, and it will come, will you be ready to stand like Koda stood, to choose like Marcus chose, to trust like Zara learned to trust? The Wind Echo Untold channel exists to share these stories of courage, loyalty, and hope, because the world needs them now more than ever. If Koda's story moved you, if it reminded you that heroes come in all shapes and sizes, then I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button and join our community of people who believe that stories matter, that courage inspires courage, that the light shines brightest when the darkness seems overwhelming. Turn on notifications because every week we bring you stories of ordinary beings doing extraordinary things, of loyalty that transcends boundaries, of love that conquers fear. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below and tell us about the guardians in your own life, the people, the animals, the unexpected heroes who stood up when it mattered. Let's create a community that celebrates courage in all its forms. The zebras still graze in the African savanna. The guardian still watches over them. And somewhere in the tall grass, new stories of courage, loyalty, and love are being written every single day. The question is, will you be part of the next one? Remember, in a world that often seems dark, be the light. In a world that often seems cruel, be the kindness. In the world that often seems hopeless, be the hope. Be the guardian someone needs you to be. This is Wind Echo Untold, reminding you that the most powerful stories are the ones that change us from the inside out. Until next time, keep watching for the extraordinary in the ordinary, the heroic in the humble, the eternal in the everyday. The legacy continues. The guard never ends, and the story lives on forever.